Okay, I want to say I appreciate your work. You really did a great job, and I've read your other articles where you've related to this. And last year, as I was teaching through Revelation, this is one of the key areas of, I think, struggle is on defining the chronology of these three septads in relation to the abomination of desolation. Now, it seems to me that just before I say that probably among this group there's two major views. One view is the view that you take, which is that the sixth seal judgment is equivalent to the abomination of desolation, or comes about that time. The other view is that the sixth trumpet judgment comes at that point. And as I evaluate your argument, where you state that logically the logical string there, A equals B, B equals C, C equals D, D equals E, then A equals E, it seems like the real crux of your whole argument, everything hinges on the identification of B equals C. That Luke 21, 20 to 24 is talking specifically about the end times. And the question that a friend down here was asking earlier, I don't think was focused enough on that, is what is Jesus talking about in terms of the intended meaning in Luke 21, 20 to 24? Is he talking about 70 A.D. with a typology to the future, or is he talking about a future with an application to 70 A.D.? Because if he's talking about 70 A.D., then the identification of Luke 21, 20 to 24 with B, which is Matthew 24 and Mark 13, falls apart and your whole logical string collapses.
I'll look at that again. I'm not sure I understand, though. Let's say Luke he focuses in on the destruction of Jerusalem 70 A.D. as his primary focus.
Right.
And in the back of his mind, though, and the research that he's done, he still has an understanding that this Luke 21 is going to be fulfilled a second time, as Matthew and Mark emphasize.
Well,
so
yeah,
why would that? I guess I don't understand why that would change the equation.
Well, if what he is saying, arguing from Bob Thomas's great work on hermeneutics, the single meaning of the text, that if his primary intent in Luke 21 is talking about what will happen to the Jews in 70 A.D. And then the whole period of Jerusalem being trampled underfoot by the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled, that then describes the entire church age period. Removing this from that equation, it only relates typologically, which does break down the logic.
Well, yeah, I mean, Bob will say, and I don't know if Bob's here, but there's one meaning to a text, but when you do get to prophecy, there can be multiple applications, and we know that when the writers of the Gospels wrote, that they selected their material, they arranged their material, they adapted their material, and applied their material. They could take the exact same parable, the exact same discourse, and apply it differently to their audience. And so I will have to put my brain around this more, maybe talk with you more, communicate with you more. But if Luke chose in this Olivet discourse, in his research and listening to others and putting this together, if he chose to say, I'm writing to a Gentile audience, I'm writing to explain this destruction of Jerusalem, and I'm going to focus in on the near destruction of Jerusalem, but I still understand that there is a future application of this, then everything that is said in that text can apply to a future event.
Excuse me for interrupting, but that's not what you're saying. In your logic string, you're saying the abomination of desolation equals this event. That's it's not, you're making a much stronger statement than application.
I'm saying that the time frame.
Yeah, but that's what causes a breakdown in the groups. The second thing I want to bring out is, and I agree with you in terms of your basic conception on Revelation 10 through 14 and your synopsis there. And let's look at Revelation. I want to see how Revelation 12 fits in this, because of Revelation 12, as you say, the author goes back to bring up the history of Israel, going back to the birth of Christ, etc., all the way up. But his point in Revelation 12 is at the end, the persecution of the Jews. And that, I take it, is a result of their fleeing into the wilderness, is the result of what Jesus has said, when you see these things take place, flee to the mountains. That comes in the broad chronology of Revelation after the sixth trumpet. If, as you argue, that this really is taking place after the sixth seal, why is that material, which is sort of non-temporal from 10 through, especially chapter 12,
right?
If that's non-temporal, why didn't he cover it at the end of chapter 7 instead of after the completion of the sixth trumpet judgment?
And my answer is that John is, I call them spotlights, that in chapters 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, between the announcement that you're going to have the seventh trumpet executed and the seventh trumpet is executed, that John pauses. I'm not going to say as if to allow the reader to catch their breath, but he pauses and he says, let me put a spotlight on some very significant people, nations, kings, during this second half period. And so let me talk about the two witnesses. Let me talk about the woman Israel. Let me talk about the different beasts.
Okay, wait a minute. Let me catch what you just said. The spotlight is put on them in the second half. But if the second half starts at the end of chapter 7, why didn't he do it there? Why does he do it after the sixth trumpet?
Again, my suggestion...
Because you see what I'm saying? In the broad chronology, that appears to be that if 10 through 14 are the second half, they come in the structure of Revelation after the sixth trumpet judgment, not after the sixth seal judgment.
And my answer is that, and my proposal is that these chapters are the little scroll. That after John consumes the scroll, he's told to prophesy again of so on and so forth. So he hadn't eaten the little scroll yet. Now, why God decided to do it that way, I don't know.
But see, you haven't solved the problem. The little scroll is still second half, and it comes after the sixth trumpet.
Sure, but...
So if the little scroll is the second half, why isn't it after the sixth seal?
Now, are you a sixth trumpet person?
Yeah.
Okay, well then we'll talk personally later.
I'm arguing that view right now.
Right.
Because I see that as a major problem with your view.
Sure. Right. Yeah. And if you want the sixth trumpet to be the midpoint, I'll look at that also. I'm very open to looking at that. But again, the whole book structurally follows, chronologically follows. And I think that you have these spotlights because there is a pause in order to say, look, you're in the second half now. Let me tell you some very significant persons and events that are a part of the second half. Tommy?